Welcome to OB in the Movies, The Intern, presentation by the A-Team, with Alexis Bergen, Lindsay Holbrook, Nicole Baugh, and Zachary Meyer. The Intern is about a widower in his 70s that has been retired for many years. He begins to get bored with retirement and decides to take part in a program that offers internships for seniors. It's very clear from the beginning of the movie that Ben, who is played by Robert De Niro, had a very successful career as a businessman. He's very professional in his attire and well-spoken. He gets an internship with an up-and-coming internet company that promises clothing with a perfect fit for women. Jules, who's played by Anne Hathaway, is the creator of the company. She's young and confident, but lacks the experience required to run a company. Ben ends up becoming Jules' personal driver/assistant, and they hit off a good professional relationship almost from the beginning. Throughout the movie, Jules struggles with the decision to hire a CEO to run the company for her. Doing this would give her more time with her husband and daughter, but would undo much of the work that she's put in. With the help of Ben's experienced advice and a blessing from her husband, she ultimately chooses to run the business on her own. The intern hits on many different organizational behavior aspects covered in the course and the book, but we're going to put an emphasis on how it relates to stress, professionalism, job performance, and diversity. Many of the characters in this movie succumb to stress and ultimately learn how to cope with it. Jules is the primary character with the most stress in the movie. She has to deal with work stressors, home stressors, and challenge stressors. Ben is the person that presents himself as the most professional and has the best job performance. His confidence and appearance becomes contagious to the other interns in the movie, and they slowly begin to dress better and present themselves more professionally. Ben faces concerns with his age in the workplace with regard to new technology and his lack of expertise with computers. The movie clearly hits on the differences in the workplace and how a younger person and an older person are treated.
There are two major types of diversity: surface level diversity and deep level diversity. Surface level diversity refers to diversity regarding observable to the eye attributes such as race, ethnicity, sex, and age. When people make those observations, they tend to be very stereotypical, and they don't take the time to actually get to know the person before they start to assume things. After time, those stereotypes are erased or corrected when the proper time is taken to get to know the person and understand who they really are. Deep level diversity is much different. Deep level diversity is more on the inside. These are the things not observable by simply looking at a person. This diversity is recognized after a more personal experience with a person and taking the time to get to know them. Diversity, whether surface level or deep level, is very important to having a well rounded team. Diversity is important in the workplace because it provides you with a variety of experience and a more well rounded team. If you have a team full of the same type of person that have all experienced the same things, like solving problems and getting work done, is going to be so much more difficult than if you have a team of people that are more well rounded and come from different backgrounds. As explained in Chapter 11 of our textbook, too much or too little diversity on a team can cause conflict. The team needs to have its own identity and come together as one in order to help become successful. This common cycle of having too many of the same people in the same team, seeking diversity, and only looking at the surface level traits to make stereotypes can be represented in the movie The Intern. In the movie The Intern, the company all works together as a team and they decide to increase their amount of age diversity on the team by looking for a senior citizen intern. The average age of this current team is most likely in the late 20s or early 30s. You would expect some controversies when adding a man in his 60s to a team of young hotshots, but it was the complete opposite. When faced with situations where you would assume one was going to be offended by certain situations, there were no issues at all. For example, in minutes 10 through 12 of the movie, the senior citizen main character named Ben is going through the interview process, and there were a few questions that you thought might turn him off to the idea of working with somebody much younger than him. For example, the much younger interviewer asked Ben, "Where do you see yourself in 10 years?" They both laughed it off and continued on. That is a prime example of how there is a difference in the age that they are used to hiring. After the interview process, the clothing company decided to hire Ben and put him working for the CEO, Jules Austin. Jules is much younger and very, very successful. Although Ben was very successful in his past life and has much more experience, she does not recognize that from the very beginning. She brushes him off to the side and decides to let her surface level assumptions prevent her from getting to know Ben. Throughout the movie, Jules gives Ben a chance and allows him to help her. By the end of the movie, she references to him as her best friend. This is a prime example of how just looking at somebody for their age difference and not actually getting to know them at a deeper level can hinder you from your experience with them. According to the article Age is No Issue, 8 out of 10 employees would have no problem having a manager who is younger than they are, and 91% said that they would be fine managing employees who are older. Although almost everybody who was presented with the question did not have an issue with working with the age diversity, that does not mean there are not challenges. Challenges present themselves whenever there are differences throughout the workplace, but learning to work with them and taking advantage of the deeper level diversity traits is key to being successful.
The constant underlying theme of Jules Austen's character is stress. Throughout the movie, she experiences several different stressors that help to shape her character and give viewers a better understanding of her. As explained in Chapter 5 of our textbook, Organizational Behavior, Improving Performance and Commitment in the Workplace, stress is defined as a psychological response to demands that possesses certain stakes and that tax or exceed a person's capacity or resources. The demands that cause people to experience stress are called stressors, and the negative consequences associated with stress is strain. The major stressors Jules experiences in the movie are work-family conflict and negative life events, which are both non-work hindrance stressors. According to the article Work and Relationships, Keeping Them in Sync in the Midst of High-Stress Leadership by Marcy and Breck McFadden, helps us to understand the dangerous impacts of job stress on relationships. The author explained that high-stress jobs can lead to weakened family structures, stress-related illnesses, increased divorces, and personal unhappiness. A scene that takes place at 1.36 and ends at 1.42 during the movie demonstrates the transactional theory of stress by illustrating stressors that Jules is experiencing and then showing her primary and secondary appraisal of these stressors. During the scene, Ben and Jules are on a business trip to San Francisco. After a false smoke alarm rouses everyone in the hotel out of their room, Jules invites Ben into her room since she is now wide awake. Once they are settled back in the room, Jules asks Ben about his marriage and then goes on to confide in him about her marriage. Jules tells Ben that her husband, Matt, has been cheating on her and that she has known for 18 days. However, Jules has kept this to herself and has not told Matt that she is aware of the situation because she doesn't know how to handle it. Jules is very upset about Matt's cheating and has been trying to assess the situation to determine if her marriage will last. She then expresses her fears that keep her up at night if the relationship were to end. Also, Jules discloses to Ben that the reason she is considering hiring a CEO is because it may help her get her life back on track. The work-family conflict stressor that Jules experiences is brought about by the demands of her job of running her internet company, causing her to work long hours and/or bring work home. This does not leave much time to spend with her stay-at-home husband, who is tasked with taking care of their child, leading them to basically only see each other in passing. Jules believes that this is the cause of her husband cheating, which can also be defined as a negative life event, non-work hindrance stressor. During the scene, Jules goes through the primary appraisal process when she tells Ben that she has not told Matt because she is trying to understand the situation. She moves on to the secondary appraisal process by explaining to Ben that if she hires a CEO, her marriage may last. Jules' desire to seek assistance by hiring a CEO is fueled by the hopes that in doing this, she will restore her work life balance. This is an example of problem focused behavioral coping strategy, which is defined as a physical activity used to deal with a stressful situation. Something else that helps Jules to cope is the emotional support that she receives from Ben. This support, empathy, and understanding that he provides Jules helps to alleviate her emotional distress brought on by the non-work hindrance stressors she has experienced. The emotional support ultimately helps her to make the decision to not hire a CEO. Outside of reacting to stress and utilizing different coping methods, a strong weapon to hinder the direct and indirect effects of job stress is having a healthy relationship, explains McFadden. Additionally, the article offers some helpful tips and strategies to help build and maintain strong interpersonal relationships.
I now will be discussing professionalism in the workplace. There are many factors that are associated with professionalism that can affect opportunities or promotion. Professionalism attributes include, and not limited to, dress attire, being on time, positive attitude, respect, honesty, and integrity. Throughout the movie, The Intern, a 70-year-old widower, Ben Whitaker, played by Robert De Niro, possesses these attributes and demonstrates true professionalism. Every job or role is critical for success of a company. When a good work ethic is practiced and consistent on a daily basis, professionalism should come natural. Appearance and attire is essential for the company and an individual's perception. In the article, Professional Dress for the Present by Martha McCarty discusses the importance of understanding the limitations of your company when it comes to dress and appearance. She states how it can be difficult in today's society in understanding of what is appropriate attire at the workplace. It is important to remember and understand that we represent our employer and its company's image. Throughout the intern, Ben illustrates his professionalism through his attire. He wears a tie every day, shaves every morning, carries a vintage briefcase, is very presentable and well distinguished. A scene that takes place at 116 illustrates Ben's professional attire in the workplace. While at a bar, Jules explains to the young interns how men no longer dress professional. She says, "Look and learn, boys," referring to Ben and how he presents himself every day. She goes on to explicate how nobody calls men men anymore. They went from being called men to boys, and females went from being called girls to women. Jules is referring to the way males carry themselves, dress, and masculinity in the workplace. One last attribute conforming to professionalism that takes place during the movie represents honesty and integrity. As Ben looks out the window of the office building, he spots Jules' driver standing outside of his SUV, drinking from a flask as he waits for Jules. Ben rushes down just before they depart and confronts the driver in a discreet manner. He tells the driver to either explain to Jules that he is unable to drive today, or he will tell her. The driver tells Jules he's not feeling well and unable to drive. This shows that integrity and honesty is very important in the workplace, and to do the right thing no matter how big or small, and no matter if someone is watching or not. If unable to conform, consequences will be faced and termination could be at risk and trust can be lost.
Over the last few minutes, we've discussed stress, diversity, professionalism, and job performance and how they relate to the movie The Intern. Stress in the workplace can have a large impact on an employee's life, and that often extends far beyond the walls of the office building. It often follows us home and affects our lives with our friends and families. Jules learns to handle her stress by realizing that more time at home is needed, but it doesn't mean having to sacrifice everything she worked for. Being professional adds so much to an employee's reputation. When Ben first enters the workplace in his suit, he's met with a certain respect because of the way he dresses and the way he presents himself. Not many people would question his ability to be a good employee. No matter what our background, we're all going to experience difficulty with diversity. As shown in the movie, the best way to handle diversity is to embrace your differences and use them to make yourself a stronger employee. Ben handles this by learning everything he can about the technology that he does not know. Our careers will constantly throw hurdles at us, and it will be up to us as employees to learn how to overcome them. Hurdles are how we learn as individuals and as an employee. The Intern is a very cute, happy movie that tells us one way of handling those hurdles. When we ultimately face them ourselves, it will be our responsibility to use what we learned in our organizational behavior class on how to handle them appropriately.